Okay. Hello, my name is Heather Marsh. I am a student in EDM 310 at the University of South Alabama. And today I'm here with Ashley Rose, and she is a second grade teacher at Robert E. Lee. Um, how long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching for 3 years.
Do you incorporate any kind of technology in your classroom? And if so, what kind? And if not, would you be willing to use technology?
I do incorporate technology. Every day we have a reading street lesson where it's on the smartboard, and so we have like interactive activities where the students can come up and they can move things around. So it really shows, what they're understanding. They also are able to log on to their accelerated reader program every day and take their reading quizzes by themselves. So that's really something that we work on in second grade, is getting them to be independent with being able to do that. At the end of the year, this is the first time that we're doing this, that we're having them type their writings in language arts. So we're working on an opinion piece this coming week, so they'll have to type one of them. So that gives them a lot of practice with the keyboard. So things like that we do.
Okay. Um, can you explain a little bit about the Alabama state standards for your classroom?
Sure. Just the state standards in general.
Yeah.
Um, I think last year was the first year that they had started the Common Core state standards, and 45 states, I think, adopted them. Um, and one of the big reasons that they went to Common Core state standards was because they noticed that a lot, or a high percentage of college students, were having to take remedial courses when they went to college, and I was one of them. So I understand. A lot of high school students were graduating and they weren't where they needed to be. And so now they have goals set in place where our students will graduate from high school, and if they want to go into the workforce, then they should be prepared to work with people, with their peers, whether they're from our country or from other countries. Because in the past they weren't matching up. So
How do you feel about the state Alabama state standards?
just like anything else that's new, it's a challenge. This year we have a brand new reading series that we adopted that is supposed to be highly correlated with it. So it helps us as teachers at my school, because we're not having to find resources that line up with it like other schools are having to. Because we've talked to some other teachers that aren't as fortunate as us, and they're having to find resources that they're just having to find it on their own. Whereas our school, we were able to adopt a reading program that aligns with it, and we also adopted AmSty Math, which is extremely different, but it lines up with the new standards really well. So we're only having to find resources for a few of the standards, whereas other people are having to find them for all of them, pretty much.
So for your school, what subjects do you have the standards for? Are they for all of the subjects, or just
the new standards are just for reading and math?
Just for reading and math. Okay.
They're just for reading and math.
Do you feel like it makes teaching harder? Like, is it harder to make lesson plans?
I don't think it's harder. It's definitely challenging, just because it's new. It's a new way of thinking, and it's different from how I was. When I was in school, I learned differently. So you kind of have to change your way of thinking, but you can really see a difference with the students. Like, you can tell that they understand it more clearly. We teach them talk moves. I don't know if they've talked to you about the talk moves in college yet or not, but you're teaching your students to communicate with one another. So rather than direct instruction from the teacher, where you're just pouring out all of this information and they're just taking it in, you're giving them a problem to solve, and then you're teaching them ways to solve it on their own. So you're not necessarily showing them all the steps. They're having to think through the processes, and they're having to discuss with their peers why they agree with one another, why they don't agree with each other, and so it helps them to work through the thought process much more, so they're understanding it more clearly.
How many projects do you do a year?
Well, the first time I thought about projects, I was thinking science because generally you think of science projects. So with science, of course, we do one per quarter. Well, we have one grade per quarter. We do more than that, but we also, when you're talking about like project-based learning, and I started looking at what that is, we really do it with reading and math because it's basically it's where they're having to, like I said, they're having to work through things. You give them something that's intriguing, something that they can relate to in their life, so they think it's interesting, and then they have to work together to solve their problems. So we do it, I would say we do it every day. I mean, every day in reading, we have every 5 weeks they have a unit theme. So, for example, the one we're working on now is what it means to be responsible. Well, then every single week there's a new question. What does it mean to be a responsible pet owner? So all week we're talking about pet owners, and they're having to think about what it means, and you'd be surprised at all the different things that go into what it means to be a responsible pet owner. Last week it was what does it mean to be a responsible friend? What does it mean to be a responsible family member? And so they're having to work together to come up with answers for that, and then they have to prove their answer. Then in math, we also have the same type of thing. So we might ask them a question that is interesting, and then they have to work together to come up with it. So the classroom setting is much different. It's loud. There's lots of movement going on. You see the kids talking with one another. They're working together. But I think it's good. I think it's good for them to know, even at a second grade level, how to collaborate with their peers, because when they get done with high school, that's what they're going to have to do.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.